Morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modern Market, where every day we discuss all things to do with the market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to hopefully make some or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today. We have crypto steadying before Jackson Hole tomorrow. BNB is the strongest, up 3% after hitting all-time high at $880. We'll touch on that in a moment. We've got Plasma announcing a Binance partnership. 1% of plasma supply will go to the first depositors. $250 million cap has been filled instantly. We will touch base with what is going on the stable coin Tether chain. And Kanye West tweeted a new meme coin. Yeezy went straight to 3 billion before a big sell-off. We will touch on that, but we're not super keen in general for these celebrity coins at this point. I feel like the market's kind of tired of them, and we will discuss why we think that is in a little bit. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus a general discussion where we think attention is flowing in the market, so stay tuned for that. Delighted to say I've got special guest Signal with me in the co-host seat again. We're ready to get into it, but just a reminder, friends, before we do, nothing that we say here is financial advice. The market is very, very risky. We do not know anything for sure, so please proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Signal, good to have you back with us. How are things? How are things on your side?
They're good, man. Thanks for having me back on the show. I'm only going to be filling these shoes while Legendary's away, everyone, so don't worry. Legendary's coming back. I'm going to fill his shoes today for Thursday. I have to say, the more time I spend with you guys, the more I feel like I'm becoming a gambler. Like I've noticed in the chat, like things like Yeet are now much more on my radar when they weren't before. I'm asking about the games and now I want to start playing again. Like, and slowly it's that friend who starts you on smoking marijuana and then you're on heroin, but they're okay. They're okay, and you're the one just left with the crippling effects of gambling, basically. But yeah, it's good. I was on my morning walk this morning, and I'm always just sort of thinking about markets, what's going on, how to position myself. I think August is a really interesting month in general because obviously TradFi are off doing their holidays, and then going into September, it's not immediately September, obviously, because that first week everyone's forgotten their passwords. So it's normally, how do I log on? Like, oh, what's my password after your holiday? We've all been there. So it's normally like the second, third week is historically when you start to see momentum, and then really by end of September we should really start seeing what true signs of the market are and the direction we're going. And in the back of my head, I'm just thinking to myself, like, how do I want to position myself for Q4, and what will be the outcome of what happens on Friday, and how will that affect the end of the year? And just like all these conversations were happening in my head at the same time. And obviously I use AI to drive some of those conversations, to have more thoughts and stuff, but we're still not at the point where it can give you a definitive answer on everything when it comes to the future. So I like to have these back and forth conversations in my own head about what it is I want to do for the last Q4 of this year, because this is when things are really, like, I really feel like are going to heat up. Players who have been here, I think, will probably drop their tokens potentially as we go into Q4.
Sure.
Because there's that risk that we don't know what's going to happen in 2026, or at the same time projects who've been building for a long time will release in Q4. Historically, Q4 is the big month, like whether it's retail and you're doing your final push for Christmas, or it's your corporate company and they're like, we need to hit the targets for our VCs. Q4, we've got to show them. Like, Q4 is the most important quarter of the year. I'd say Q4 and Q1. And so I've been really thinking about that on my morning walks.
Very interesting. Okay, so let's get straight into it then, and we're going to talk headlines, all the market topics for today, of which there are some very interesting things to do. But since you've gone in that direction, what was your thinking? Like, we talked a little bit off air, and how I was telling you about how me and Legendary had a call before the summer. I mean, we're having calls all the time, obviously, but we had one specific call, and we kind of laid out our summer, like laid out these are the things which we are focusing on. And I think we do this kind of publicly. I just tweeted about it. I'll try and find the tweet to show people like the trajectory of what that how those particular projects that we picked are doing now. So I'll find that in a second, but curious for your thoughts then on how you are practically thinking about whether it's specific. How are you thinking about it? Are you thinking like specific projects that you want to like double down on and focus on? Because that's definitely how we've thought about it. Or is it more like macro movements and general positioning?
It's both. So it's definitely macro movements. First of all, I mean, we're going to talk about, the whole Jackson Symposium later, but that's definitely going to have an effect on the market. What the Fed's decision is in September, and that's going to affect how crypto and equity markets move for the rest of Q4. So that's been something playing in my head. And whilst we live in this uncertain month of August, I've just been thinking, like, what additional trades could I put on? A lot of people say don't put any trades. I'm someone who always believes there always is a trade. So right now I'm on Polymarket. I put my bet that there won't be a cut. I put that bet quite a while ago that it won't be as cut, and I've basically ridden that momentum as it becomes more uncertain that there won't be a cut. So that was like little thing that I did there. Then I've been thinking about what ecosystems I want to spend more time in, whether that's doing Yeet, whether that's doing Abstract, whether that's buying NFTs on different platforms, whether that's selling NFTs that I already had. Is it doubling down on tokens which have sold off quite aggressively during this period? I'm constantly thinking about like tweaking my portfolio. Not my I kind of have my long-term portfolio, which is built around this whole industry is going to go up and to the right. So
Yes.
you kind of like, I think we've all taken our bets for what that is, but I find and really enjoy this short to medium stuff as well. I'm not so short that it's like I'm into perps trading. That's not my skill, that's not my area at all. But I do think like you can take a 1 to 2 month, 3 month outlook and still make bets and be right and just have a bit of patience for it. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it. It's just like, which ecosystems do I want to be in? And then how do I want to position myself for the very short term? And right now, I'm just thinking up until rate cut decisions. I think that's a really interesting period right now, Marin.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is a wise perspective to take. I wanted to share the tweet that I was talking about. This isn't the specific tweet, but this was a more general one that I wrote in May. But I can talk through some of the maybe specific parts as well, because I do remember those. I think I have shared them separately, but maybe it wasn't in this kind of specific thing. So this was May, start of summer. Legendary had tweeted, had a 2.5 hour portfolio strategy call with me, game plan ready for the next few months. And I think one of these were some of our takeaways back then. Trump is pro crypto, so we like him for that. But more than they've strategically positioned themselves so aggressively to profit from the industry. So therefore, it has to go up. I think that's like, I believe that's still to be true, even if there are things that kind of make things go up and down. The US debt is out of control, and any idea that Doge was going to curb it in any meaningful way is certainly wrong. So that I believe is also true. Comfortable holding more Bitcoin as a percentage more than ever. It's performing excellent on any reasonable time frame and is making private investments look increasingly bad. This was a reflection, and I think this is actually a good reflection, which is still also holding true, that as we get further and deeper into the cycle, people who are trying to raise money late might be coming in with like higher valuations, and you need to be way more confident about that investment late stage. Ideally, you want to do angel stuff at the bottom of a market because you get good valuations, you get good terms, and so you don't want to do it at this stage. I've still done a couple at this stage on founders who I'm like super confident on. I either know them very well or have some type of relationship and super confident. But it's kind of like rowing it back in a little bit, basically, from in my view. We were then still writing on Hyperliquid back then. Hyperliquid offers the best opportunity in crypto right now. Spot price appreciation, number one, potential further airdrop for more hype users, number two. Number three, Hyper EVM protocols will have tokens too. And four, Hyperliquid team is small, only 10 people, so they want to allow very valuable protocols to be built on top of it. That thesis is still there. And then we spoke about Kaito, and I was talking with Signal about Kaito as well earlier. Kaito, whether people like it or not, because of how some of the slop has entered into the arena, and some of the value is maybe lost when it incentivizes people in the wrong way. If there are specific products which you like, the upside from the Kaito proportion allocated to you is completely, because we're early doors in that whole distribution of tokens. It's very much you get more than you deserve, I think is probably fair to say. There's always this time when you enter a new area where there's super normal profit in one area, and it will last for a little bit, and then people will realize, oh, oops, we like kind of did too much or something like that. And for example, you just had Infinex do the Yap run season 1 and 2, no, season 0 and season 1. And I was an investor in the protocol. I thought it's a cool product. I still use the product. So I shared stuff to do with the product. We had the team on, and I was telling Sig before, it's public because you can see me on the leaderboard. That's like $20,000 from 2 seasons of talking about the product that I thought was good and that I invested in. Like, that's a good opportunity to take advantage of. Like, no matter what you think of Kaito, you can get emotional about the protocol and say that it's slop, but okay, we're going to talk about something. You might as well talk about things that you like anyway. And if they've allocated a disproportionate amount to it, it's your job to, as a allocator, to figure out like, oh, they've over allocated here, and so I can participate in that. And you do it in the most responsible way. Obviously, if you try to farm 35 leaderboards at the same time, your account is going to become valueless, and there will be no value. There will be no value that accrues to you. So you got to think about that. And thinking forward, the thing that I was telling Signal is, again, this is all public. Like Yeet, for example, we're bullish on the casino. We work with, yes, they are a partner, but we've been talking about them before we were a partner too. They've allocated 2% of the supply to people who create content. I saw one of them, I can't remember which founder, complaining that we've allocated so much, like there's barely enough. There's barely that many people like taking advantage of it, because I don't know, people get distracted and do all kinds of things. That's why I think this specific conversation is super helpful, because as you're getting to the end of one period and moving into the next, to reallocate and refocus, like, right, what are the things I want to do for the next 3 months? And for us, back at the beginning of the summer, it was like Mega ETH, Hyperliquid, Infinex, Yeet, and I don't know, maybe Bitcoin, obviously, but there's nothing to do on Bitcoin. So those are like four areas for me personally where I was like, okay, oh, and Plasma. I was telling you before, Plasma, need to get exposure to Plasma, and we did that. So redoing that process now, I think, is a helpful thing. But curious for your reflection, Sig. I'm going to stop for a second before
there was something really interesting in that tweet. It was actually what you were talking about yesterday as well. You were talking yesterday on the podcast about looking at your portfolio in terms of Bitcoin and how it's performed versus Bitcoin. And Oxy came in and was talking about this point as well, but I just wanted to reiterate, this is what investment managers do. So when you have a fund, when you want a client to put in money into a fund, one of the things that they'll always ask and do in their due diligence is to say, well, how has your strategy performed versus XYZ? And XYZ could be the S&P 500, for example. You can have, like, whatever the benchmark is, you can choose what it is. But the idea is that the client is trying to figure out, am I paying this person to outperform the S&P? Have they been underperforming the S&P, or are the same as the S&P? A lot of clients, that's how their due diligence works. And this is really important, because if the fund, let's say that it's a hedge fund, the hedge fund is the same as the S&P, well, why are you paying them so much fees to basically get the same performance as the S&P? It doesn't make any sense at all. You want them to outperform, and by a substantial amount, because you're paying them high fees. And so essentially, you should be, when you're looking at these decisions that you're taking, what the conversation was about yesterday, and I just wanted to emphasize this with like using real world examples, is that you need to think of yourself as an asset manager. And I need my portfolio not just to go up in dollar value, that's great, but like, have I actually outpaced inflation? Have I outpaced the S&P? What is my opportunity cost every single time? And in this case, obviously, BCheck's using Bitcoin as the benchmark. But I just thought what you guys were doing was really smart, because that's exactly what real world asset managers do. And that's what clients want to see. It's like, I'm paying you money to do what? To basically beat the index. Now, obviously, it would be nice to have someone to pay us to do that. But I just think when you're making investment decisions, it's a really good way of thinking about these things. And so that's what I wanted to sort of touch upon within your tweet. Or as well, I think, going to your point about which areas that you're looking at, I think some of the reasons perhaps why people lose momentum on these things is because I think Blast, for example, was a good example when the space went really hard into farming something, but
Yes.
because of the outcome of what happened with Blast, people felt very fatigued and almost like trust was broken. Like, you took so much of my time, so much of my effort, and so much, and in some cases, depending who you are, so much of my money, and the outcome was not what we all expected. So you had
Yes.
this really like deflationary period of the timeline being rubbish. It's again one of the reasons why meme coins came back, because there was literally like nothing to do, and that era is kind of over. But I do see, you're asking why don't people do these things? It's because I think there is a lack of trust around some of these protocols, that I'll do all the work and it will just be another Blast. Now, some people love Blast, some people continue to use it and really yield benefits from that ecosystem, but I don't think it means you stop doing it. I I think it means you just have to evaluate teams and protocols better in order to understand what the opportunity is.
I completely agree. I want to address two things. One thing that you said, and then one uh, very important comment, kind of critical comment in the comments, but I think it's a helpful comment to address. So, to your point, absolutely, uh, that explains why people don't look for more opportunities. Right? They get burned on one. They have expectations for something, and then they don't get the expectation, and the delta between what they expected and what they get means that they think that they're not going to do it anymore. You can't be bothered. It's like, look, in this arena, there is no room for that attitude. This is a pure attitude problem, and I think it's an allocation problem. Like, okay, fine, you made a mistake. You made a mistake. The team let you down. So a few things have happened. You allocated in the wrong place. The team let you down. So what? Be better next time. Like, this is the universe that we're in. We can't hope that things are going to be different than the way that they are. And I think this happens all the time. I put a ton of money on Bearer Chain in USDE, thinking, okay, I'm going to put that here. Okay, when I tried to get it out, I think I left it there for a couple of months at least. Pretty sure I had to pay money to get it out. I didn't even bother wasting time I think the expectations have to be, I don't know what I'm going to get. I've made a strategic decision. I'll evaluate whether it's gone right or wrong after. But if it doesn't go well, I'm on to the next thing straight away. And you've got to have that attitude in this industry, because there'll be a lot of disappointments. But the way you come back from them is how you kind of get onto the next thing and get onto the right thing. So I think that's a really important thing to keep in mind. Okay, two other questions on this, which I think there's some awesome questions in the comments actually. Takeoff Tone asked, in hindsight, how could we have saw Blast going that poorly? Were there signs? And for people who may be a bit newer, Blast completely encapsulated the timeline, got everyone like farming these gold points, trying to get an airdrop and stuff. The point for me is not to know that it's going to go badly. The point is you manage your risk and your allocation to it so that you win, irrespective. So people were burning a lot of real money based on made up numbers of what gold was going to be worth. I burned some money strategically, but it was mostly farming, mostly like low time, low capital, take the W at the end. People were burning insane amounts of money when they did not know how much gold was going to be worth. In fact, it was impossible to know how much gold was going to be worth. It's literally impossible because it's called gold, and there's no relationship to a token at that point in time. So you've got to think through, like, what is it possible to know here, and then let me make my strategic decision on the basis of that. So you can't know it's going to go bad, but you just manage your exposure, in my opinion.
And and on that point, I remember with Blast, there was a point where at the beginning people were like, I'm either going to make money or I am going to try and farm as much as I can. Right. So there was opportunities along the entire way for you to be pulling out. So some of those meme coins actually went pretty high, not high compared to what we have now, but high at the time. So you could have easily just been taking out all the money out of that ecosystem along the way. What that would have meant, because remember, they penalized you if you tried to take your money off, actually out of the ecosystem. was that you basically could have played for money or could have played for points. If you played for points, you were basically burning all your money. But if you played for money along the way, that's how you could have basically de-risked along the way. Now, I think the entire space at the time thought that Blast was going to do well. The problem was, and I remember Stats talking about this, was one, he could never come up with a proper price, which is very worrying when you've got like a former Goldman's person not actually able to price this, strange asset gold. But secondly, at the same time, it was that Blast did come out during the bear. It came out during the bear, and there had been signs along the way that other tokens were just not performing. So, like other tokens that had debuted at the time were not performing up to the expectations that people thought. So then people thought, well, why would Blast do the same? And some people thought that, and some people just kind of were like, shut your mouth. It's going to do well. It's Blast. So I think it's also about like you needing to look at both sides, because the pundits will always argue both sides and then taking a decision for there, but always at the same time be taking money off the table and actually like don't just farm stuff, like because you can farm stuff and make money along the way. You don't always have to lose.
Well, of course. I mean, that's the main point. And I would argue, look, I think it came out at 2 bill. That was not the estimated amount, right? That it could have done. But now for an L2 being 2 bill, we'd be like, okay, cool. That's okay. So, there's probably an argument to say it did fine. The problem was how much people spent in like burning capital in order to try to get it. So again, I always want to just hold the mirror up when it comes to these things to anyone else, but also myself. That's how I treat myself. Like, put the mirror up. What did I do wrong? Or how did I read this wrong? And that's the best way you're going to learn, rather than look at the teams. You do not know other teams' token allocations. You don't know how they're going to slice it up. You're never going to know. Like, take it off. You can't blame them because they might do something stupid. In fact, you should be betting that they will do something stupid, especially in this industry, based on history. Like, that would be the smart bet to make, so that you can only control your own capital and the buttons that you click. One final point here, because I thought this was an interesting one, just on the content side of things, because I still do think the content side is a huge opportunity for people. This is a good question. Takeoff Tone said, this is a 0.001% conversation. Most never even have the option of playing Kaito because they're just too small. I actually think, look, I think there's some merit in that. The way that, if you are a bigger account, you have a bit more of a luxury to pick. Like, I can pick whatever I want to do, whatever I want to allocate towards. However, you've got to say, like, everyone started small at some point, and usually the way people grow from small accounts is by picking something niche and running with it and becoming like the best account for Yeet, the best account on Infinex, the best account on whatever. So look, you might not have the luxury to pick 3 to 5 that you'd like to do if you're much smaller. But if you have the founders of projects complaining, saying like, damn, we've allocated all this percentage to Kaito, and like we're only getting like 30 to 50 people in the whole world who are taking this seriously. If you create some proper stuff, then I would bet you have a decent chance of people in that ecosystem knowing you, people in that ecosystem wanting to elevate you. And so again, maybe you don't have the luxury, but that's how small accounts grow. So I hope that's provided a bit of a differentiated set of opportunities for how to think about things moving forward. I like this conversation. I don't know if we should, maybe we'll circle back to some of the opportunities as well in a sec. I'm conscious we need to get into...
I'm just going to, just to answer, sorry, I'm just going to add one more thing onto that comment that person said, is that, like, B-Check, myself, we all started at zero. Like, none of us have bought followers along the way. And correct. It's so easy to just grow your account in this space, but it's your mentality around it. Like, having a following and having real people follow you is an asset within this space. Now, you can't put money on that, like a real number, but you kind of can at the same time. Because if you look at what Monad did, they wanted 5,000 people. They wanted real people, right? So they were very much looking at who, it wasn't just, oh, you have 20K followers, so you're going to get a card. They were looking at, well, is G Money a real person who follows you? Is B-Check a real person that follows you? If you just find something like B-Check was saying, like my account grew off the fact that When Spaces first came out, there were no recordings. Okay, this is how old I am. When Spaces first came out, it was not recorded, and the Badogos used to have a podcast every single day, and there was so much alpha in this podcast. It was crazy because this was at the height of the NFT craze. And what I would do is every single day I would write that space out and say, this is all the alpha that happened in that conversation, and people would follow me for that. And that is what I did every single day. And it's such a small thing, but people found value to it. And it was just one thing that took me an hour to listen to the podcast, and then I was writing it up along the way. So I'm just giving that example that even if you're small, just find a real world example that you can do every single day that doesn't take a lot of time, and it's going to add value to your following. And then when stuff like Monad and Kaito and all this stuff comes out, you've built an asset that you can then monetize off. So that would be my sort of advice on the back of what B-Check was saying about growing your account if you're still very small.
Indeed. Nothing further to add there. I think that's pretty smart advice from someone who has done a great job doing that. Final just shout out or like just point for the modern market community before we get into the main headlines today. Wanted to share the Yeeter board. We're talking about Yeet. We're bullish on Yeet in general. Last week we did our first giveaway for people who signed up via our ref link. Just going to share this week's board so you can see who is there, pushing way more volume this week. So all of these people who've signed up via our ref link and are putting through some activity will be on the raffle for up to $500 tomorrow. We're going to do $250 in cash, $250 in free spins, which we'll do at the end of the show tomorrow. And we'll do our second winner. So looking forward to pick that out tomorrow. If you haven't signed up yet and would like to, obviously you gamble what you believe to be a responsible amount, be responsible with it. You can sign up from our link in our Telegram. If you are not on Telegram yet, let us know. But otherwise it's there. It's an opportunity available for us. So looking forward to do that tomorrow. So that's a heads up. If you haven't got on the board yet for this week, you've got 1 day and 12 hours. Or well, we're going to do the giveaway on the show tomorrow. So that's just your time frame. Okay, getting into the main stuff today. Let's get you up to speed as usual with the majors and everything related to what's going on. I'm going to share my screen as usual for the people who are watching in live on X, live on YouTube as well. We've got Bitcoin pretty much flat at $113,500. We've got ETH up almost 3% to 4.3K. Got XRP up 1% to $2.90. BNB did hit an all-time high at around $880, strongest of all the majors, then pull back just to $850. Solana's up a few percent too to $184. And Hyperliquid is flat around $41.50. And Sui is flat at $3.50. Getting into the meme coin side of things, we've got Doge up a couple of percent, Pengu up a few percent as well. Bonk is flat, Trump is down a touch, SPX is down 3. Fartcoin is still around 90 cents, down 20% on the week, although a lot of things are down double digits on the week or so. Rect is flat. Shout out to Rect. They did the first drop yesterday. I got something wrong on the show. I said that I thought the value of the sales of the drinks would be or the amount of rewards you'd get from buying the drinks would be the same or more than the value of the drinks. Turns out there were no rewards yesterday. Still sold out 20,000 cans in 1 minute. So showing true demand even without kind of token incentives. So that's pretty awesome. Useless is down 13.5%. Back down to 230 million. So that's interesting to note. Troll, on the other hand, is a big one to point out. That's up 10% back to 200 mil. Very popular OG meme at the moment. Getting into the headlines themselves, we have, let's get to the headlines themselves. We've got crypto steadying before Jackson Hole tomorrow. Signal's going to take us through some Jackson Hole thoughts in a moment, because it's been weighing on her mind. So we'll get to hear those. Think Plasma announcing the Binance partnership. 1% of the Plasma supply will go to the first depositors. $250 million cap was filled. I think it's important to understand what's going on there. So I'll explain that. And then finally, Kanye West tweeted a new meme coin. We'll get you up to speed on what went on there. Went straight to $3 billion, has sold off to 1 point something bill now. So we'll touch on that as well. On the NFT side of things, let's have a look if there's anything to really note. Moonbirds, again, up 15%, back to a 3.75 ETH floor, up 35% on the week. That's clearly just the biggest winner in this, I don't know, last few week period, looking incredibly strong under the new leadership of Spencer. Penguins are around 12.6 ETH. Bored Apes are 11.6. Ladies are at 220. Moonbird Mythics are up 11% as well to 0.4 ETH. So that's the main stuff on the NFT side. Getting into the rest of the roundup, we have Wormhole seeking to outbid Layer Zero for acquisition of Stargate by proposing a suspension of the current live DAO vote. Empery Digital Treasury Company trades below its MNAV, holding 450 mil in Bitcoin, but trading at a $340 million market cap. We've been speaking a lot about the potential issues and problems that these treasury companies might face if they start to trade below the net asset value. So I think that is starting and is likely to start for more. BNB treasury company Windtree Therapeutics was delisted from the NASDAQ for non-compliance. Legion announces $5 million raise to reimagine fundraising led by Van Eck. Find that very interesting. Spoke to the founder not so long ago, really liked him. Looks like that is a positive raise. China considers a yuan-backed stablecoin. Proof of Play announced new marketplace API to allow developers to build their own marketplace with crypto payouts. And as we mentioned, Rect-based lime drink sells out 20,000 cans on base in 1 minute. And the Libra team regained access to $57 million after the court ruling. Remember, that was the Argentina coin launch in conjunction with the president of Argentina, which went sour many months ago. So that is the rest of the roundup. Signal, before we hit the main stuff and get into it, is there anything else catching your attention? Any other opportunities you want to talk about before we get into the main stuff?
It was interesting about China. What do you say? Considering having a stable coin. I can't remember who said it, but someone was like, "Who would buy that?" And I was thinking to myself, everything we are living through right now is just going to be a reflection of what is currently happened, but just going digitally. So the same person who is buying China's one right now is the same person, individual or entity that is going to buy it when everybody realizes that digital and fiat work in parallel. Those two worlds are probably, I don't know how far we are away from those two worlds completely merging. But in the same way, everybody is asking, oh, I don't want to hold, a dollar-backed stable coin. And then everyone's saying, okay, fine, you're going to hold Bitcoin, but somebody out there will want to have stability. They want to have a coin that does not go up and down. So which currency are you going to hold? Well, go look at your own portfolio now. You're probably holding a lot of dollars, or you're probably holding a lot of euros. All I'm saying that the behavior that we have now, it is going to be reflected in digital currency, and it's going to be exactly the same. So I think like people sort of need to like almost like laughing at companies and countries as they take these major strategic decisions to essentially defend themselves against what is very clear where the puck is going. It is so clear right now. So when Stripe does their L1 and when all these entities and all these countries do these things, they're doing it to essentially defend themselves or take a very aggressive position against the future, which is so clear right now. So that is what is one thing that I thought was quite interesting. And I forgot what the other one was, B-check. So we could move on. It will come to me, I'm sure, but I forgot what the other one was.
That's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I do a lot of thinking on stable coins. I think the dollar is still incredibly important. And I think if there was sufficient demand for any other currency, then there would be that they would have been offered privately already. So I don't like the idea. Well, as in, I think there should be more options for people, especially when you pay taxes in a particular currency. And then if the dollar is going to get weaker, that's not ideal for you not to have a stablecoin option. But yeah, that's my thoughts in that direction. One final thing, I guess, before we get into the main stuff, talking about opportunities, I talked a little bit earlier about how we kind of set ourselves up pre-summer for like a variety of things on our horizon. I want to find the actual tweet where I named specific protocols because I know I did one. I just did a quick one this morning. This is not like a full set for the next, I don't know, 4 months or so, for the next quarter. But I just want to share this one because I thought this was like a quick version of something that I am thinking about. Rethinking through some new under talked about opportunities right now. I think Yeet spins and content is like a great look. Risk reward. I think they're doing crazy numbers, and even on the content side, content's free, and they've got 2% allocated to content creators who are creating Yeet content. I think Moonbird's content is an interesting shout. Like, again, I don't know if people have really clocked that opportunity. Sure, you can buy a Moonbird at more than like $13,000 now. Maybe that goes up potentially. But if Moonbirds keep going up, if your bet is that keeps performing well, which I'm sure some people are like feeling that momentum but don't have 13K. Well, you've got the second NFT collection, but on the content side, you could that could be pretty decent potentially. Polkadot content always gets slept on. We work with Polkadot, but the yield on Bitcoin on Polkadot is outstanding. Sure, it's juiced with incentives, but it's crazy how few people want to write about anything even good that's happening in the ecosystem. I think we should be open to different ecosystems if there are useful and interesting and profitable things to be doing there. Polkadot is definitely one of them, and the rewards have been outstanding for people creating content. So I just wanted to put that on people's radar. And then finally, a new one, football.fun. Football.fun is one I want to take a look at. I've been seeing a lot of information going out. When we talk about football, this is not American football. This is our football. This is our football, the real football.
Wait. So I can earn money talking about football?
No, so this is not on the content side. This is you can buy and own players. So you can
no.
So this is one which
I don't know enough.
Yeah. So again, if you like sport, maybe this is one to have a look at. It's very, very early. It was relatively early. And this one, I think I need to explore a bit more. I actually had a call with the founder a while ago as well. I thought he was good. And this is one I'm just like putting out there. It's like, okay, I need to do some more research here. Just wanted to put it in the tweet, to be honest, because then if I'm right, I can say that I was right. Funky, your hand is raised. Quick take on some of these opportunities, thoughts before we hit the main headlines.
Yeah, just real quick. I pretty quickly rocketed to the leaderboard on Yeet, and I haven't even been putting out that much content because I know Legendary was killing it, and I thought, well, I'm degenning my face off on Yeet. I may as well just make little videos and clips and stuff like that. And I think I was 19 just after a couple posts. So Yeet is a pretty accessible leaderboard. Last thing about Polkadot, just quick note for anybody who's listening and wants to make content. This is the last month. So this is the 6th and final month out of that $100,000 a month, which is very, very easy. And Signal, if you like football, you could always just play FIFA Rivals and talk about football and that, and maybe get some Polkadot payout with 10 days left. So there's an option there.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Appreciate that additional clarity, Funky. Useful to know that Polkadot is just 1 month more. So that's very helpful. Okay, look, we've got 15 minutes left in the show. We talked a lot more about opportunities yesterday. We did check in with the Telegram to ask, like, was that good to talk about opportunities, a bit more like personal thoughts on portfolio? People do like that because I guess you can just talk about the specific news and you can just read the timeline for that. Sometimes, however, we have specific thoughts on the news today as well. So let's get into that. First headline up is for Signal, talking about how crypto is steadying here. Jackson Hole is tomorrow. Obviously a big meeting. Do you want to put this in context, Sig? Why is this an important meeting for you? And what are your thoughts around allocation as a consequence?
Yeah, so Jackson Hole is one of the world's largest banking conferences that happens. Some people call it Davos for banking. And essentially, the reason why it's so important on Friday is because we are going to be hearing what the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, his view on what should be happening to interest rates as he goes into his final term. Now, the reason why this is so important, obviously, is because the context here is that the Trump administration has been putting an enormous amount of pressure on the Monetary Policy Committee to essentially be decreasing rates, whilst those two parties are independent, shouldn't really interfere with each other at all. And they have a mandate, which is to keep inflation at 2%. That is their target, and to essentially make sure that the labour market is robust. That is their mandate. So going into tomorrow, people are really going to be listening to Powell's language around what he potentially might do in September. If you go and look at the prediction markets, such as Polymarket, 25 basis rate cut is still the one in the lead. But what's interesting is that no change has essentially been gaining. So 25%, the chance of a 25% basis point cut has been decreasing, and no change has been steadily increasing. Now, if we look at, so last night I decided to read all of Powell's minutes all of Powell's speeches that he's ever given at Jackson Hole from 2018 to 2025. Yeah, I did. I read every single one. I read every single one. They're not that long. They're probably some of them are short, some of them are longer. But I find it really interesting. Honestly, I find this stuff really, really interesting, and it helps me to make future decisions. But the point is, when the one thing that stood out to me, actually, when I read through the whole thing, was that in the first paragraph, I could tell what the decision was going to be in September, just from the first paragraph. And that isn't because it was just a game that I ended up playing. I was like, if I hear the speech for the first time, can I guess what he's going to do? Now, essentially, over the last coming years, especially when inflation peaked, his speeches really became about fighting inflation, bringing it down. We need to get it back to that 2%, and we're going to keep on doing that. Now what's happened is we've got to a point where there's very much conflict in what's happening within the data. On the one hand, CPI is coming down. On the other hand, PPI is going up. On the other hand, the labour market is actually okay. If we look at what the title of this year's symposium is, it is Labour Markets in Transition, Demographics, Productivity and Macroeconomic Policy. Now, for anyone who ever studied economics, that's an essay that your professor would have asked you to write. So, what you can tell from that title is that he is going to talk about the labour markets for sure, and it's going to be something that will be headlined because he's actually done that. Him and the rest of the board have actually done a really good job in making sure that the labour market is actually quite solid at the moment. The reason why I think inflation, there might be no change, is because he often says in his speeches, our job is to get to 2%, and we are going to do that whatever happens. Whatever it takes, we're going to get there. And we hope not to do it through a recession, as he said in previous years, but just to get to that 2% and make sure that the labour market doesn't suffer as well. And they're at 2.7. So they're really, really close. But what he also doesn't have, and what the board does not have, and if you go on to read the July minutes, which I did, is that you've got these tariffs, these ongoing tariffs that seem to just have this lag data. They don't know how it's going to persist. And even if they have 1 month of data, it's not enough. So if they have 2 months worth of data, because July they had data and August they now had data, is that enough for them to say, tariffs are having an effect, not having an effect? Or do they need to wait even longer because businesses might not have taken a decision? Businesses don't often just completely pivot in 2 months. Sometimes they wait maybe 3, 6, 4 months. So it's completely, it's still 50-50 which way this goes in September. I also think this is his last term. He wants to go out also showing what he has done over the last 5 years. This is how he navigated the ship through COVID. This is how he brought down inflation. This is how we've made the economy more robust using the tools that we can have. So I think there'll definitely be quite a strong review where he basically says how much of a good job he's done, which he has going into his last term. But I also think the information that he gives, I think this is the one bit which I don't know if he'll be opaque or if he'll just say basically in September you can expect XYZ decision. That's the only bit which I can't quite figure out going into this last term. But I also feel like he wants to make it very clear that what he does and what the board do, those are their tools and it's their decision what happens in September. It has nothing to do with the administration. And he'll say that in very nice, polite, elegant language wrapped around, these are the tools we have and we've used. if we don't have the tools, then it's basically not our fault. I think there will be some of that in the speech as well. It's basically telling American people, as he hands over the economy to the next chairperson, I gave them a good economy, I gave them a good monetary policy, I gave them low inflation, and whatever you do after that, that's your problem if you mess it up, but I gave you 2%. I did not give you 2.7, I gave you 2%. I think that's his goal come May.
Okay, so you're definitely leaning towards the inflation number being the one that he is maybe prioritizing more. As Funky mentioned the other day, I think as he's kind of got that dual mandate, right? One is the inflation number, one is the employment side, which seems to be getting weaker. So I think I'd probably lean towards you, but I was also speaking to Legendary yesterday. I kind of feel like it's a coin flip for me now. Like I don't know. And just thinking about it from an allocator perspective for a second, I don't actually like coin flips. I like, even when we're talking about opportunities we're talking about opportunities earlier in the show, right? And often I like placing bets on things where I can double up or triple up, talking about like, okay, well, if I invest in this thing because I like the product, then I'll talk about it for Kaito as well. And I will also use the product obviously because I like it, and it becomes this beautiful flywheel where you can, that becomes like an excellent flywheel for value creation when you're allocating towards something, I think. Whereas if it's just like, oh, I think this might go up or it might go down, like again, it is part of the thinking where it's like, I don't know what he's going to say. And I think sometimes it's fine to decide in the same way that it's like, look, I don't know what these teams are going to do with the tokenomics. I don't know. And this is in a way, it's kind of the equivalent. I don't know what this guy's going to do with the US tokenomics. I don't know what he's going to do. I don't know what he's going to say. And I feel like it's a coin flip. And therefore I want to be at this point, I spoke at the start of the week and last week about how I kind of a little bit concerned about how high we were versus the data that was coming out saying like, look, inflation's going up. I feel like we've corrected down from there. Now, do I think it's a better? I feel like any dips from here would be worth a buy potentially, but I'm kind of flat going into this. Like I'm not going into tomorrow with any leverage, for example, because I feel like it's a coin flip basically. So kind of just waiting and observing. Sig, any final thought there before I definitely want to do the plasma news. We've got about 5 minutes left, but go on.
Okay, perfect. Just to say one thing, just because if there is no rate cut in September doesn't mean there won't be a rate cut this year. I think by the end of like October, we'll have enough information about how tariffs are affecting the economy. And they're so close to their target that I do think they'll start cutting. And I think we'll probably have one rate cut if it doesn't happen in September before the end of the year.
I think that's what everyone will say if it doesn't come. But if inflation keeps going up, then what? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, it's all lag data. So he's just going to keep looking back and seeing, is it still in play? That's it.
Okay. Well, those are our thoughts. A little bit of a bunch of context, a bunch of thoughts, some concrete stuff, some a little bit like, look, guys, we don't know there. So just wanted to put that information out there. You guys can make your own decisions, of course. Getting into the second headline, we've only got about 5 minutes left, so we might leave the easy stuff, to be honest. We'll get you up to speed very quickly, but I think the more interesting, deeper one to talk about is this plasma news. Obviously, we've spoken about plasma a lot on the show. We have been bullish at a $500 million valuation, which is the price they did their raise on. Plasma and Binance earned the first on-chain USDT yield product for everyone. Yesterday, Plasma announced a partnership with Binance Earn to launch the first fully on-chain USDT yield product available through the Binance platform. The way it's going to work is they opened up a $250 million kind of allocation for people on Binance. The allocation was filled on a first-come, first-served basis. And you're basically farming for 1% of the XPL supply, which is the supply of the Plasma. It's the Plasma token, which is coming out at some point. The $250 million was filled in less than an hour on Binance Earn. They did say in this tweet the caps may be raised again soon. They just reminded people Plasma will launch with over $1 billion in stablecoin TVL, the largest launch our industry has ever seen. And Olympia wrote this very, helpful breakdown on how this actually works. So he said you deposit up to $100,000 USDT per Binance account to farm 1% of XPL. The cap was 250 mil, and that obviously filled up in 1 hour. Time lock is 60 days. So to calculate the potential APR, you iterate the FDVs and you divide that 1% between all deposits. So if Plasma was to launch at 2 billion FDV, he's put some calculations here, which would mean that would be a 48% APR on your deposit, which is obviously a fantastic deal for Binance depositors. And I believe, I'm just going to stop my screen for a second. I'm just going to have a search for Wales market because my belief is that Plasma is trading much higher than that. Let me give you the price that it is trading at. So if we look here, I'm going to share my screen again for the people who are watching in. Plasma is trading at 36 cents at the moment, which I guess if it's kind of following the usual design, that would be 3.6 bill, not 2 bill. So on a 500 mil FDV raise, if you slam some capital in there, then you obviously got an allocation based on your deposit, because your deposit was not your allocation. Your deposit was earned you points in order to get an allocation. But if it comes out at 3.5, that would be a 7x on your allocation. That's what it appears to be trading on Wales market at the moment. Usually, remember, we say Wales market, you can't trust it. There's not enough volume on this stuff. There does actually appear to be a reasonable amount of volume here. 24-hour volume is $859,000. Total volume is 5.8 mil. That's loads more than some pre-markets in the past. So I still want to wait and see where it trades. I have a feeling this is going to trade on hyperliquid pre-markets, because I saw the unit founder doing some Twitter comments and trying to get in touch with Plasma. So I don't know if that's going to happen definitively or not, but I would be curious to see where that comes out. I've seen a lot of buying demand OTC at 2.5 bill, pushing towards 3, I think. So fairly confident in that. And I think that's helpful to give people a sense of, what the return was, or what the return is looking like, what the potential is looking like, and how people are kind of allocated towards that. So Sig, coming to you here for some reflections as we kind of getting ready to close out before the final headline. Thoughts on Plasma? Thoughts, any reflections on this Binance partnership for 1%, or just broader on that token being the kind of Tether stablecoin chain?
Disappointed that I'm not in. That would be my thoughts. I tried to get in, couldn't get in. But I think this one's going to be one of the most successful ecosystem plays going into the rest of this year and to 2026. I think what's interesting about them is considering when they raised basically peak market, which is why they were able to fill so easily. But I think this is an example of a player in a space that even if they'd done that during the bear, I think they would have had the same outcome. And that is when you've got a really good team, a team that can raise well in a bear and can raise well in a bull. Unfortunately, I'm not in, but I hope to be and be able to participate in the future.
Okay. I think that's a fair assessment. I think this has been a cook for the people who were involved. We spoke about it a lot before the show. Hope that people were able to participate if they were able to. Final headline. And we'll come back to Plasma in the next couple of days and weeks. We'll continue the coverage there. Of course, final headline before we close out for the day. We have to at least just bring to your attention, in case you missed it, although I'm sure you did not, the Kanye West token was finally released. It was obviously rumored for a long time. Yeezy YZY, it was launched on Solana. It pumped to around 3 bill, I think, in the end, within just a few minutes of him posting the ticker. And I believe now it's dipped back down to 1 bill. So strong retrace. Busy, who is pretty awesome at like doing the liquidity provision, said that the Yeezy team, this was hours ago, so must be more now, printed $9 million in a couple of hours just in fees. They did a 1% fee pool with dynamic fees, which, as you can see, is at 2.68%. Then took the cheaper route and made it. Okay, I'm not super familiar with the liquidity stuff, so they've done some stuff here, which means that they were earning a very nice percentage on the trades. So it looks like, whoever's launched this, they made a ton of money. Our general view, I think, on these types of things now, and maybe the interesting thing to take away, to be honest, is that not super keen on the celeb coins, not super keen on people just launching coins and running them up super fast and then seeing them collapse and seeing loads of people lose money, and there not really being any reason for the coin's existence. And interestingly, I think if this had launched at any other point in time, or at least in the previous the cycle in the previous mania in November, December, January, you'd see all other coins nuke down as a consequence. And I think this is the reason why we need to talk about it rather than get too deep in another celebrity coin. It's just very interesting to note that the coins seem to be unaffected, like completely unaffected. Everything is kind of trading in its own way. You've got Dogecoin up 2%, Bonk is down, is flat, Pudgy Penguins is up 3%. Like, memes are just behaving like normal, majors are behaving like normal. It was not like when Trump launched and everyone had to sell everything that they owned in order to buy it. So it looks like, maybe no matter how big a celebrity you can imagine, it's not going to do that anymore, because I don't know if they get bigger than Kanye. Maybe some people opt out because, look, this guy's people will say he's kind of lost the plot and don't want to support anything from this type of person. Maybe there's a little bit of that attached to it as well. But, in crypto, I think people chase the speculation, but it looks like not in this case. Sig, are you taking a similar kind of learning from this?
Yeah, I'm taking. I mean, I totally missed it, but even if it had come out when I was awake, I wouldn't have jumped in, because for me, what you're on the back of what you're saying is this is a reflection that the meme coin market has matured in its own way, that it's going in a different direction where a celebrity can just can't comes in and just can't influence it in the same way that Trump did, or Iggy Azalea did. It's moved on, but I think it's maturing in the right direction. I don't think it's going anywhere, and I think what's happening right now with the launchpad wars that we're happening is actually more interesting than tokens like this dropping. So it's good. I actually think it's a good thing that everything else is kind of like just bobbing along, doing its own thing, and just the volatility has gone down.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's actually a really encouraging thing. I know that a lot of people make a lot of money on the meme coin side, and respect the hustle entirely. But I do think there was something, like, there was a point at which it couldn't continue because everyone was going to lose all their money and there would be nothing left. And maybe you're already in those burning embers of the destruction of that ecosystem. Obviously, it's still alive and it's not going to go away entirely. But yeah, it's kind of cool to just see the market operate as usual. Some people can make some money there, some people are going to lose it, but the rest of the market is not going to kind of tank to it at the same time. So I think that's pretty cool, and the correct learning to take from that today. We're just about to close out. Just want to kind of give people a PSA. Again, quick reminder, on the community side, we've got this Telegram. We're doing a bunch of stuff in there. It's an awesome community we're building out. Really appreciate people who are participating, just, hanging out outside of show hours. I think people are finding it quite useful. We're not doing anything a huge lift, but we are directing. If we have things to give away, if we have things to do, there's two things we're doing like live at the moment in the Telegram, which I think people would like to know. Well, one that we did yesterday, which we got, you saw the Monad cards. Myself, Legendary, and shout out to Oxy, who's up on stage with us today, have said, like, our nominations will go to people in the Telegram. So we've put a message in the Telegram, and if you are a part of the Telegram and you're a part of the community, then you can react to that. And at some point we'll pick some nominations from the people who are with us. And in addition, we gave away how many spots? We gave away 5 Cerebro. I can't remember how many it was, 4 or 5 Cerebro whitelist spots, which is the portfolio tracker that built by Mav. We gave away those also to people in the Telegram earlier this week because it was just an ad hoc opportunity that came available. And so that mint is now live for people who are, whether they got it through us, whether you got it from someone else, that mint is live. You can go mint that now. Just a reminder to show that, you know, we've got this community. If we do see interesting opportunities or we get giveaways to do, of course, we're rewarding our listeners, and it's all listeners in there, basically. It's not for just random people who are, you know, so that's where our community is kind of migrating, rather than do like Twitter retweets and all this stuff. I kind of don't like that stuff. So it's nicer to do it in like a small group or smaller group than just like publicly, I think. Oh, that's how it's going to be for now anyway. So just wanted to shout that out. Thanks so much for joining us as always. Thanks so much for being with us in the Telegram. Thanks so much to Signal for joining us on this special edition again. Thanks much for being with us, Sig.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You know, the other day when you guys did the list of winners, I was in my kitchen, literally nervous. I was like, will he say my name? Will he? Because you got to be in it to win it. And like a little piece of me was like, maybe I'll win. And then obviously I didn't, which was like, oh, well, whatever. But you got to be in it to win it. So again, B-Check, thanks for doing these community challenges. Thanks for having such a cool like community going on in there. It's super fun. And thank you for having me on. Look forward to listening to Ledry when he comes back as well.
Legend. Always a pleasure to have you, Sig. Welcome back anytime. Thanks so much for joining us, guys. We will do this again tomorrow. We'll be back, final day of the week, same time, same place. We will see you tomorrow. Have a wonderful day. Take care. See you then. Bye-bye.